to this combination symposium press conference. We'll try to keep things moving so that we can get to the point of you guys actually asking questions, because I think that's the most important and the most important thing we want to accomplish today, and the crux of really what we want to do. The subject today is creatine. A brief history about creatine. If you go back to 1832, Chevreul, a French scientist, actually identified this substance as a new organic substance in cells, and that was about it. His contemporary in 1847 found that in foxes, after a good fox hunt, we don't do many fox hunts in this country, Excuse me, that's my. We don't do many fox hunts. We have no trouble with lacrosse in this country, so we don't do too many fox hunts. But I guess a fox, after a good fox hunt, they found that they had a lot of. A scientist named Liebert found that these foxes had a lot of this creatine in their bodies after a fox hunt. But after that, it's not a very glorious history. It was relegated to the textbooks, buried in the textbooks. Somewhere in there about creatine. And when I first had my exposure to it from a research standpoint, not just as an athlete, I actually had to give it a thought and go back to my textbooks. And this goes back to my pre-medical days as an undergraduate. And lo and behold, it was there in my textbooks all along. There it was. It was no mystery. We had identified it. We knew about it. It was a substance that existed in muscle. But nobody really gave it a thought. It wasn't until it was revisited in the early 90s, actually right around 1993, that someone, very creative, open-minded folks, creative thinkers, began to give this stuff exogenously because they believed that it might have an ergogenic use, maybe in athletes. And so they started giving it orally, and they started seeing results. And then the science started. Okay. We started to see studies coming out extolling the efficacy of this not so mysterious substance, a substance we know quite a bit about. My own experience with creatine is quite positive. Seeing both amateur athletes, Olympic athletes, professional athletes, athletes of all caliber, both in my practice and as clients. I'm an advisor to quite a number of teams. There is no question in my mind regarding creatine's efficacy, and it pretty much holds true for anybody that's in the industry. Anybody that should speak on the subject would certainly not deny the fact that it is an effective substance. In terms of mechanism, I just want to touch briefly on mechanism. The mechanism of action basically focuses on the fact that understand the currency of energy in the human body is a substance called ATP. Okay? It's like the dollar bills that your body uses. If you want to do something at the cellular level, if a cell wants to exercise its duty, it needs to use ATP to do those things. But once you use an ATP, that ATP loses a phosphorus, and it becomes an ADP. Okay? It's like you have $1, and you go in, you buy an ice cream, they give you 75 cents back. By the way, if you know a place that sells an ice cream for $0.25, let me know, but this is just an example. It's like, you give you 75 cents back, and you're sitting there with an ice cream cone and 75 cents. You can't get that $1 back. Not unless you give him the cone back before it drips all over your hand, or you give him a quarter back, 4 quarters, and he'll give you the $1. That's the only way. And the body works the same way. You've got to regenerate ATP for a cell to exercise its use. And in the case of muscle cells in particular, there is an intimate requirement, an essentiality for ATP and subsequently for creatine. Creatine efficiently delivers a phosphorus back to ATP to restore the currency that the muscle cell uses. And that's really the mechanism. Very important to understand that. There are other physiologic mechanisms that we have to restore ATP, but that's really very important for very quick explosive action is the research will say within 2.6 seconds of exertion, which is actually quite a long time when you think about the amount of time that it takes to contract a muscle. It's actually quite a long time. So it's an essential part of muscular contraction. There is some controversy surrounding creatine, and I have the glorious task of fielding some of that stuff. So I'll come back to that in a minute. But before moving on, I just want to say it's very important that a group like ours steps forward collectively as a highly, what I believe to be, these are my colleagues anyway, highly knowledgeable team of experts that I believe are eminently qualified to answer questions on the subject and step forward as the source for you folks to come to. It's much needed in our industry, and people have to know where to go for answers on the subject. And finally, in terms of manufacturing and issues of purity, these are very important. This has been a big problem, undeniably. Our industry is not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration in terms of its strictness like the pharmaceutical industry. So we are a self-regulating body